Okay, so in this video we're going to be going over chapter 22 from the inn to Rome, and there's going to be embedded 5 items that simply listing them is going to get you the easy 100, and obviously you'll be studying as we go along. So remember that in the previous chapter they finally left from the inn, and now they just have the short journey from the inn that they've been stuck at for so long, and going to obviously be arriving right at the Porta Capena, which is the south of Rome. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin. Jam dies erat. Now or already it was day. Remember that erat comes from sum esse fui futurus, and it is the imperfect eram eras erat. Prima luce, you see that it is in the ablative, and you translate that by, with, because of, from, in, on, at. So at first light, an ablative of time, the coachman, the minivan driver, and then we go find our verb, which we see is extroxit, from traho, trahere, troxy, so it has the perfect stem, and of course the perfect ending. You tell the perfect stem because of v-suck. So that coachman did drag, has dragged, or simply dragged out the minivan, the ridum, aphos, out of the ditch, and then another ablative auxilio with the help, ablative of course, of the slaves, genitive plural, of the innkeeper. Remember, short is, genitive singular. And he moved, moeo movere, moemotus. He did move it, that minivan, towards the inn, or to the inn, the motel, if you would like. Tum servicistas Corneliorum Raidario tradiderunt. Then the slaves, and of course that is your nominative subject plural, and your verb is tradiderunt. Again, from trado, tradere, tradidi, so it has the perfect stem, and then of course your perfect ending, e isti it, so it is the verb, did verb, has verb. So the slaves handed over. Now this is a ditransitive. Remember that ditransitives are those that will have a direct object, and then a receiver of that direct object, which is the dative indirect object. Give, show, speak, or tell. So handover is like give. So did hand over the suitcases, kistas, accusative plural, to the coachman, to the minivan driver. That is your dative case. Now when you look over here in your chart, you can see for the second declension, us, eo, o, it's either dative or ablative. But how did I know that raidario was the dative and not the ablative? Because we had the ditransitive verb. Look for ditransitives in knowing whether it's going to be dative. So then the slaves handed over the suitcases to the coachman, to the minivan driver of Cornelians. Interia, meanwhile, in the motel, the Calpona, remember that your Calpona is a first declension word. Calpona is the nominative, and then dative Calponai is the actual motel, whereas the motelier, the person who runs the motel, is the third declension calpo, calponis, and with a third declension set of endings, variant is, ime. And note that that is not an ending long o, instead it is the nominative variant, which we will see down here a little bit below. Nevertheless, so, in the inn, meanwhile, dum omnes se parabant, while all were preparing. Ba, remember, is imperfect, so prepared, were preparing themselves. Say could be himself, herself, itself, or themselves. How are you going to know which one? You look at your subject, and since it is they all, obviously, it's they all were preparing themselves. If your subject was Marcus, Marcus prepares himself, but say would be, of course, still just simply the word say. Sextus, now in memor. Now memor is going to mean mindful, in other words remembering. In memor is going to be the opposite of mindful, which is forgetful. And all words of remembering and forgetting take a genitive. And that's why you have here terroris nocturni. That is the word meaning happening at night, nocturnal, modifying the terror. So Sextus, now forgetful of the nocturnal terror, remember the incident with the noises in the motel room, he was telling Naro Narare the story of the genitive soldier, miles militis. Miles would be the, of course, singular, and it is the variant. So it would look like the following. It looks like, again, it has an ending, but it's not. It is that variant that over here in the chart you can see has simply 2 question marks over in the chart. 2 question marks in the chart. Nevertheless, in the chart, over here in the chart, you have obviously the two question marks meaning the variant, and that would be miles, miletis, militi, militim, milite, and so forth and so on. So, nevertheless, forgetful of it, he was telling the story of the soldier, dative case, to Cornelia. Now with that AE, it could be genitive singular, dative singular, or nominative plural, but remember we have a ditransitive, give, show, speak, or tell. Eucleides, another ditransitive, was giving, do, dari, dedidatus, commands, orders to the slaves. The word mandata is a plural, and with that A ending, as you can see over in the chart, it is second declension neuter, and so mandatum, mandati, is the order, and so this is either the orders do something with the nominative, or somebody does something to the orders, and that's, of course, what it is, an accusative, as it's the object of debat. Cornelius ipse. Cornelius himself was shouting to dative Aurelia and to the free ones, which remember are children. Agite omnes, a plural imperative. Drive on, everybody, drive on, all. Nolite cessare, don't do nothing, don't be idle. Nolite plus an infinitive is the negative imperative. It is time to leave, not climb down. That is descendere, but this is discedere. And that's your first word that you need to obviously put into the quiz. D-I-S-C-E-D-E-R-E, discedere. That is word number one. Let's keep going. Tandem, at last, all. Now, cuncti is just a synonym of omnes, but both of them are being used substantively. We imply all what? All people. And so at last, all the family members, all came, did come, have come. Perfect stem, venia, venere, Wainy, and of course with a perfect ending, e isti it, imis istis erunt, out of the motel and climbed, in plus accusative, into the minivan. Wale. You simply took the infinitive, walere, dropped the re as a singular command, be strong. The boys shouted, walete, be strong. The motelier responded. A couple of things here. First, calpo is nominative. It looks like it has an ending O, but it doesn't. And he is the one who responded. Now, this one, if it were, of course, a present tense, respondere for the second principal part, and that, of course, is a second conjugation with a long E-R-E, it would, having taken the present stem, and its vowel would be that E, that is, he responds right now, is responding, does respond, whereas this one tells you it is a perfect stem and a perfect ending. The stem is identical in the perfect stem and identical when it is the present stem, but the form of it tells you that it is responded, perfect tense. The innkeeper who was standing in the road. Nolite plus the infinitive is the negative imperative. Don't fall, in plus accusative, into the ditch again. Non in omnibus calponis, not in all inns are y'all able. It's merely sum esse with a POT in front of it, to sleep well. Tum raidarius habenas sumpsit. Then the carriage driver, the minivan driver, he did take up sumo, sumere, sumpsi. Again, perfect stem, sumps, and perfect ending. He took up the reins. Those would be the obviously things that he has to guide the horses. And he did beat, he has beat, he beated, bad English, the horses. Tandem, at last, they were seeking, pedo pedere petivi petitus, Rome again iterum. In itinere, on the journey, Sextus, gotta go find out what he did, he explained, did explain, has explained all things. Please note the difference from what we saw earlier with omnes, up above in the previous part of the passage, versus omnia. So here let me circle both of them. And there you see omnes, and down here you see omnia. Now when we look at our chart, we can see the difference. Now it is a third declension adjective, and as you remember, all third declension adjectives are I stems. So there you can see it with this fake ending, omnis, omnis, omne. But as you go down, you see that omnes is either going to be masculine or feminine. So all people or whatever. Whereas over here, omnia would be, of course, neuter. So therefore, all things. And that's what we have down here on line 11. So on the journey, Sextus was explaining all things, everything. And then we'll probably have a dative to whom he explains it. And that is to Marcus. Now please note the word mortuo. Mortuo comes from more to us, more to a, more to And so it could be modifying the dative Marcus, or it could be modifying the ablative object of the preposition de. And so, is it Marcus dead, or is it the mouse dead? Obviously, it's going to be the mouse, and that's how you can tell which one. So, on the journey, Sextus explained to Marcus all things about the dead mouse. Remember the one that was found underneath his bed. Cornelius did tell the story of the soldier to his dative wife. And there, of course, with the I ending, is the third declension. Now, here we see it again. And so now they were approaching the city. There are certain words who, as a verb, require a dative object. Most of the time, it would have a verb, a direct object, accusative. But there are a few words, and this is one of them, and you can find them in group 4 principal parts, that have dative objects. So now they were approaching the city. So city is the only kind, or dative city is the only kind that you can approach. Cum subito pueri, when. Whenever you see the word cum, you immediately look to see if there's an ablative. If there is not one, it's not going to be translated as with, only with an ablative, but it'll be instead when. When suddenly the boys have spotted a ingains edificium, a huge building. Ingains is a third declension adjective of single termination. Now when we look over in our chart again, it would look like the following. It would be, of course, here, ingains, and then for the neuter, ingains, and note, it'll be ingains in the nominative, neuter, and it has to be the same. That's why that arrow or that line is there. And that's how it is modifying it. If I were to drag my hand over, I should be able to find edificium, and there it is. Edificium, ingains. And if I were to move my fingers up, you see how they both hit neuter. It is edificium, a second declension noun, neuter modified by a neuter third declension adjective, as it were. So, they did the boys, a huge building. Your second item that you need to know is in line 10. Sumpsit, there it is. S-U-M-P-S-I-T, that's your second thing that you need to put in. And one last thing, third declension, so dative, third declension, so dative, but then look, second declension word. It is either nominative plural or genitive. And in this instance, it's nominative plural because they are the ones who have done the spotting. So we continue on to the second page, in which it says, Marcus asked, did ask, has asked, perfect stem, perfect ending, quid est illud, what is that? We have seen before, ele, meaning that masculine thing, illa, meaning that feminine thing, but here is it now, illud, that neuter thing. Atque Sextus, and Sextus asked, quis, quid, what, quis, who lives, is living, does live in that building. To whom? This is what we call a linking cui. And so it is dative, you can say to whom, because it does mean who or whom, but you could easily replace it with to him, or to this guy, or to that guy, whatever you would like. And that's what we call a linking cui. To whom Cornelius responded, remember, respondit, cum risu, with a laugh. Here, this cum does have an ablative, and so we said with instead of when. Nemo ibi habitat. No one lives there. Nemo is just like we saw earlier with calpo. That is not an ending. Now that is an ending, but that's just the variant form that it happens to have. And your third word that you need to be able to put in is that cui. C-U-I. C-U-I, cui, is your third word. Est sepulchrum. It is a sepulcher. A sepulcher is another word for a tomb. It is the sepulcher of Messala Corvinus, who was a famous orator, a Ramasarat. Hic. Now, if it were a short I, like what you see hic, it would be this, or hike, feminine this, or neuter, hoke, hic, hike, hoke. This masculine, this feminine, this neuter, whereas that masculine, feminine, and neuter, but with a long I, it is not going to be this, but rather here. Here, there are, remember, there are, the tombs. Now, sometimes people want to say many tombs, but can multorum, with its genitive plural ending, modify sepulchra? No. And so, there are the tombs of many and of famous citizens. So, in this way, you have sepulchra telling us now that that A is either nominative plural, which it is, because remember with a linking verb, the nominative is always going to hang out, or it can be accusative plural, but here it's nominative. Of citizens, genitive plural, it is an I stem. You see the IUM of the genitive plural, because it is not permitted, it is not allowed. Now, licet is an example of what we call an impersonal verb. Its first principal part is licet. You'd never usually see a T as the first principal part. Always has an O, like amo, amare, or if I was to speak another one, rogo, rogare, or respondeo, respondere. It would always have an O, but for an impersonal verb, licet, and then the infinitive, licere, and then liquid, again, third principal part almost always has an I, but here because it is impersonal. Now, when you have the expression of the impersonal, your subject is going to be it, but it's really not it. Instead, it is an action. So we express it as in, it is not allowed for, dative of reference, Romans, see the dative plural, to have tombs intra urbem, inside the city. But really, what is the it that is not allowed? The act itself of having tombs. So your subject is actually habere. And we again call these impersonal verbs because it, of the 6 possibilities, I, you, he, she, we, y'all, they, it is the one that is not a person. And it is actually not even it, but rather the act of having tombs is not allowed. That is your 4th word, and I think there are going to be 5. Your 4th word is licet. L-I-C-E-T, licet, that's your 4th word. Soon they did see, they have seen another big building. Esne, remember to ask the question, it's merely ne on the end of a word. Is it also a tomb, father? In the vocative, talking directly to them. Vocative is always the same as the nominative, except for when a second declension word ends with a US, it replaces it with an E. Marcus asked, ita vero, thus truly Cornelius responded. It is the tomb of Caecilia Metella. None expects a yes answer. So, you have heard, perfect tense, perfect stem, ESD, you have heard about Caecilia Metella, right? Or you could just translate it as surely, but it expects a yes answer. The opposite would be noom. And if it were noom, surely you have it, right? And so, none means yes, you have. But Marcus responded, did nothing to his father. Remember that pater is a 3rd declension word with 3rd declension endings, telling me that that long I is dative. He responded nothing to his father. For now he was able, it's merely eramarasarat with a POT in the front of it, to see the city itself. And he's going to be excited. It's like when necessarily walking in downtown Manhattan for the first time with the huge buildings and the pace and excitement of it all. Ecce, look, Rome, he shouted. Ecce Roma, look, Rome, look, Rome. Sextus and Cornelia shouted, did shout, have shouted. Then Cornelius says, quote, by with, because of, from, in, on at a short time, we, if I see, I long ye, future it'll be, we will come to, we will arrive at the Porta Capena. This is the Capenan gate that's going to be the entrance to the city of Rome. And Titus isn't doing a darn thing. He's an accusative direct object. We, bi, future, will see Titus there, ibi. And then Titus, we have an appositive. Who is that? The appositive merely is another word. It is renaming another word, telling us more information about it. Patrum vestrum, your or y'all's is uncle. Wester, westra, westrum. And of course the patruus is not only an uncle, but it's your paternal uncle. In other words, the brother of your father. And there's another word, avunculus. That would be the one for a brother of your mother, maternal. But this is your paternal. So, your uncle, to information as to who it is. For, and misi from mido, midere, misi misus. I did send, I have sent a letter through a slave, and I have explained all neuter plural things, ei, dative case, to him. Titus soon, excipiet, if I see, I long ye, will welcome us. Nos can mean we, nominative, or us, accusative. But if it were nominative, your verb would have a mus instead of a t, and that's how we know it's going to be us. Soon Titus will welcome us, prope portam, near the gate. And your last word, your fifth and final one, is that vestrum that you see right at the first of the next to last line, V-E-S-T-R-U-M. So, hopefully, by watching this, it helps you prepare for the multiple choice, which this year, going to be a little bit more difficult. You only get 2 shots, so make sure you know the content. Thanks.